I think that in his mind eye, maybe it's already done.
Sarah Elliot, welcome to Times Radio.
Thank you.
Was that pretty much what you were hoping for with the speech then?
Yes, it was excellent. It was very much the same campaign lines that he campaigned on. It was positive, it was optimistic, and it was America's going to flex its muscles. And there's a new sheriff in town, and we are going to play by different rules than we have before. I think the optimistic line and the biggest takeaway is that this is a new golden era for America, and that America's decline stops now.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most new US presidents don't spend quite so long talking about how amazing they are and how brilliant their achievements have been. Nor do they generally think they're on a mission from God. Was any of that surprising to you? I mean, I know it's what he said before, but did you expect it in his inauguration speech as well?
I did expect it. I think it really shaped the campaign. I think it has changed him as a man and a candidate. The fact his near brush with death in July, the assassination attempt. And it's not uncommon for American presidents to invoke God and a mission. American history has always been perceived as a mission, as a manifest destiny in the world. It's a country that's been formed by values and principles and philosophy, not history, freedom of mankind. So, it was a very American speech. Forward looking. He did get to take some stabs at his political opponents and his dissenters. And there's no doubt that in presidential history, he has the greatest comeback of all time.
Do you think he was saved? Do you think he was saved by God to save America?
It may be the case. I wouldn't put it past God to do that.
Well, we'll ask him next time we have him on. Look, I'm turning to the sort of the substance of the speech. One of the big things he announced was that he's declaring an emergency at the southern border. He's sending troops down there. He's going to have, he says, millions of people deported. Do you have any flickers of alarm about how that's going to look when it becomes real? This idea of millions of people being rounded up and deported.
Well, I don't think it's going to be like, door knocking, dragging people out in the middle of the night and handcuffing them. I think he will target the criminals, and he'll target the Venezuelan gang members, the drug cartels, and then it'll be more of a self-deportation, I would say. The Remain in Mexico policy will come back today, probably, with an executive order, which means if you are seeking asylum in the United States, you have to remain in Mexico until that is processed. Whereas before it was a catch and release under Joe Biden, which meant we hope you show up in 7 years when your court date comes up, because there's such long queues for that and backlogs. So I think there'll be many different measures, but it's not going to be like the Gestapo going out and rounding people up. And it's going to be cracking down on crime and just enforcing the laws which are on the books, closing the southern border and creating a system of which we can have safe, legal immigration. And it must be noted that it has created the chaos at the southern border has created a horrible humanitarian crisis of human trafficking and drugs. And there are over 300,000 children who have gone missing within the country that have crossed that border. So, it's really for human safety as well.
But I mean, millions of people, that is obviously a lot of people. Cracking down on crime alone isn't going to get millions of people deported. Which people do you think are going to be deporting themselves and why?
Well, I think people who can't prove their citizenship will probably leave on their own.
But Sarah, why will they leave on their own? If at the moment they don't have to leave on their own? I mean, they're only going to leave on their own if somebody's coming looking for them.
I think they'll find that living and working in the United States will be difficult if they don't have the right papers.
Why and how will it be difficult? Sorry, I don't mean to push, but I'm just keen to understand what this actually means. Because at the moment there are huge numbers of undocumented migrants in the United States. Everyone knows that. What's going to change for their circumstances if their circumstances are not going to be made less pleasant in what some might call an authoritarian way? What's going to persuade them to leave?
Well, I think it'll be, again, it'll be difficult to hire. I think there will be processes put in place to naturalize people quicker, but, employers are responsible uh, for hiring legal people in the United States. And so I think there could be pressure there. But I just don't think it's possible to do it in a draconian way. I think they wanted to get rid of the criminals and those who are in the United States to do harm. That is their main focus, and then it will deter people from entering the United States if there really are checks on legal status, which they're very little right now.
Okay, he talked about he's going to be introducing tariffs. That's definitely happening, but he's also going to be cutting inflation. How do you think he's going to cut inflation?
Well, I think first off, he's going to cut government spending. He's going to cut back a lot of the green subsidies from the Inflation Reduction Act. He's just going to let the private sector do what it does best and stand out of the way. He will deregulate. He will cut taxes. His tax cuts of 2017 need to go into, or I'm sorry, they're sunsetting this year, so they're going to make them permanent or they extend them. He's going to reassure business. He's going to expand energy production, energy drilling. This is a moment for supply side economics and for really meeting the demands that America needs and not, and allowing more permitting for drilling, for instance. And there are areas like, for example, the electric vehicle mandates have held back American production and have controlled and interfered in the marketplace. And those types of things are going to be yesterday's news. And he's going to let the American economy boom and grow, and that will help.
I mean, but when economies boom and grow, that tends to boost inflation. Cutting taxes certainly boosts inflation. How is he going to cut inflation?
No. Listen, Hugo, I'm really happy to talk to you about the speech, and this kind of thing. But like, I really don't want to get into a debate on economic policy.
Fine,
I'm happy to tell you.
Yeah. That's absolutely fine. Let's talk about the speech then. So in terms of the environmental measures that he's scrapping, he said drill baby drill. He loves saying that. As you said, he's scrapping the like electric car promotion schemes. Should we see this as the end of America's role in fighting climate change?
I think it's definitely a change of direction. I think America wants to do it in a responsible way, but does not want to be held back by environmental regulations that could make America less competitive in the world and open itself to its adversaries who have no intention of following environmental rules and regulations. China, for instance, will open 100 more coal plants this year. Why should we be hemmed back on the energy front, which is in desperate need for innovation and prosperity, if our adversaries are completely not holding themselves back? But we do it in a much more responsible way than China and India and parts of the world. In order for America to compete and be the world leader and superpower, these measures are necessary.
I'm heartened that you think America is going to keep fighting climate change in a more responsible way. What will that involve, do you think?
Well, I think it's using better and safer technology when you're exploring, when you're extracting, when you're transporting. But it's not limiting America's ability to do these things. And that's key. And the incoming energy secretary believes that we should focus on human flourishing and that the majority of the world doesn't have enough energy to flourish. And we should focus on producing that and selling that and helping humanity progress and creating a stronger, better, and safer world.
Okay. One sort of talking point in there that I hadn't heard before, that presumably it's been a feature of the campaign. He's going to rename Denali, a mountain in Alaska, to Mount McKinley. What should that tell us?
I think that it's he does not believe in the DEI programs and identity politics of the past few years, and he wants to get back to American history. And stop renaming things just in a form of virtue signaling.
But the people who call it Denali have a longer American history than most white Americans do, surely.
I don't know the ins and outs of that, but this is this is an area where I guess he wants to reinstitute what it was before political correctness came into our culture.
You want me to? It's the indigenous name of people in Alaska had for the mountain, I believe. Look, on the world stage, he says he'll be a peacemaker and a unifier, which is nice. But he also wants to change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, bring back the Panama Canal to America, and colonize Mars. Now, like, the Martians aren't going to mind, but everybody else is. How's he going to do all those kinds of things? Bring back the Gulf of Mexico to America, bring back the Panama Canal, perhaps even seize Greenland, although I don't believe he mentioned Greenland in the speech. How's he going to do that while being a peacemaker? Is that not a bit of a contradiction?
Negotiation. It's business. It's not war.
But he has said he wouldn't rule out sending troops. Or is that just negotiation
he always
too?
okay. We've known this guy for like almost 10 years now. He starts the conversation way out in left field and walks it back. Okay. I think what we have to do is take him seriously, but not literally. So, take everything with a grain of salt, but you can know where his priorities are. And he doesn't want to be taken advantage of by any other country, especially China. And he wants to reassert America in the Western Hemisphere with aligns with the Monroe Doctrine of the 19th century. And that's where a lot of this is coming from, such as the Gulf of America, the Panama Canal, even going for Greenland. And it's the big race right now for the Arctic. And he wants to plant America's flag there. This is a very pro-American president in the sense he believes in American muscle and power, and he believes that the world is a safer place when America is strong. And that's what he wants to see under his watch for the next 4 years. And whether you like him or loathe him, it's a very patriotic thing that unites Americans. And Americans feel good about themselves when America is strong in the world and respected, and its economy is booming.
I'm interested that you still don't think we should be taking him literally, because it seems to me that this time around he mean things. Last time around, everyone said we should take him seriously and not literally. This time around, it sort of seems to be turning out he did in fact mean it all literally.
I mean, he believes in a strong America. We know what he's like. He wants a meritocracy. He doesn't want to do virtue signaling. He doesn't like DEI. He doesn't believe in the the spectrum of being binary or non-binary. He's a straight shooter. We know what he thinks and where he's coming from. But I think in things that sound very out there and very radical, I think, that can be a negotiating tactic for him.
He said he wanted to make Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream come true. Which dream do you think he meant?
That you are not judged by the color of your skin, but the content of your character.
And do you think he'll succeed in that?
I think he will put things in place that hopefully will grow and carry on that vision.
Finally, Sarah, look, on sort of geopolitics again, he mentioned the Middle East. He talked about the hostages coming back. I noticed it was one of the few times that Joe Biden joined the rest of the room and gave him a standing ovation. He didn't mention Ukraine at all. Why do you think he didn't mention Ukraine?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I don't know, to be perfectly honest, but my thinking is, in his mind, it's not going to take up his presidency. This is something he wants to finish and get over with and done in very short order, I would say in the first 6 months of his term. So I think that in his mind eye, maybe it's already done.
I mean, he had said before that he'd have solved Ukraine before he got into office. Obviously, that hasn't happened. Do you think he maybe didn't mention Ukraine because he's worried he might not get it done?
That could be a case, but I think his base and his perspective on the world is he does not want to see this carried on any further.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Finally, Sarah, was there anything you didn't see in the speech that you'd have liked to have seen?
He covered a lot of bases, I will say that. So, no, I think he showed, it's just, I can't describe the optimism and the energy that's in Washington right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost has a festival-like feel, because everywhere you go, you're hearing the YMCA, people are smiling, people are cheering. They did throughout the speech where I was watching it. There was laughter, there's humor. And, you know, the helicopter carrying President Biden flew over my building and everybody waved goodbye to it. And it's just like, this is a new era. There are new people in town. They're going to really confirm as many people as quickly as possible, unlike 8 years ago. So I just, you know, despite the really intense security, there's tons of road blockages. There's, you know, boats in the Potomac River. There are helicopters flying overhead. Despite all this kind of, you know, foreboding feeling, there's actually a lot of joy and jovialness, and just like we're turning a new chapter.
Have you come across any unhappy people in Washington, or are they keeping their heads down?
No, I think everyone's keeping their heads up. I will say a lot of people have left Washington, so you see a lot more tourists and visitors. But people were standing out now 2 days in a row at that Capital One Arena for almost 8 to 12 hours to get in to see him twice. And it's, you know, it's just the, what other politician has that ability to draw people to him or to an arena like that? And the energy in the room is electric. And I was at a ball last night and there were tons of performers. There was, what's his name? Waka Flocka. I'm sorry, I'm totally mispronouncing it, but he's apparently very popular. And he just got the crowd going, and you know, country music stars, and it's just, it is reminiscent of when George W. Bush came into office 20 years ago.
And look, finally, just how cold is it?
It is very cold. Yeah, it's definitely negative Celsius right now. And we're getting ready to have an Arctic blast where it could go to -12 Fahrenheit. So that's negative double digits Celsius. Yeah, it's cold, but it hasn't been super cold until today. But we have bright sun, great weather, bright sun, really cold.
Well, look, Sarah Elliot, wrap up warm, and thanks very much indeed for speaking to us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Hugo.